Welcome the Lord's chosen. If they can't read you, they can't control you. And that's exactly why they're obsessed with figuring you out, but always end up more confused. You're not hard to understand. You're just not built for surface-level souls. You're not mysterious because you're hiding. You're mysterious because they lack the depth to perceive what's right in front of them. And here's a wild fact to chew on. The human brain is wired to fear what it can't predict. That means you, chosen one, your silence, your movements, your peace, your presence, you're literally short-circuiting nervous systems out here. No wonder they don't know what to think. You're not just misunderstood, you're misfiled, misjudged, and miscalculated. They're running diagnostics on you like you're a malfunctioning machine, when in truth you're an entirely different species of being. The truth? They've never seen someone carry wounds like wisdom. They've never seen someone move through fire and not smell like smoke. They've never seen someone laugh at chaos and mean it. And somewhere between trying to decode you and trying to downplay you, they realize something terrifying. You don't follow the rules of their reality because you weren't made in it. So let's break this all the way down. Why do people treat you like a walking paradox? Why do they whisper your name with fascination, suspicion, or low-key fear, even when all you've done is exist? Get ready, because after this, you won't just understand why you're so hard to define. You'll understand why you were never meant to be defined in the first place. Number one, you confuse people because you refuse to collapse where others usually break. Most people break in public. They collapse loud enough for others to see it, hear it, analyze it, and label it. But you've taken hits that should have crushed a person, and somehow you keep walking like gravity doesn't work the same on you. That's what throws them off. They know something happened. They saw the betrayal, the setback, the isolation. They watched life slam you with losses that would have made them quit. But you didn't crumble the way they expected. And that's where the mystery begins. They can't understand how someone can be wounded and still composed. They want you to either lash out or shut down because that's how the world measures damage, through visible drama. But you've mastered a different kind of response. You process pain privately, you learn from it, you evolve through it, and then you show up again. Not bitter, not broken, but somehow wiser. That's what disturbs them. You're not loud about your suffering, and you're not dramatic about your healing. You just keep leveling up, and it doesn't add up in their minds. To them, surviving is one thing, but thriving after everything you've endured, that's suspicious. It's as if your strength isn't human, and deep down, some of them are convinced it isn't. They think you're faking it, or worse, that you're detached, heartless, unaffected. But the truth is, you've just outgrown the need to bleed where everyone can see it. You don't need the sympathy vote. You don't need validation from people who were never in your corner to begin with. You know what you've been through, and that knowing gives you a quiet power that makes people nervous. You've become too calm in chaos, too unshaken in storms, too composed when things fall apart, and it makes them question whether you're even real, because they've never seen someone turn pain into purpose that fast, and without announcing it to the world. You're not unreadable because you're pretending. You're unreadable because they've never seen someone survive with this much dignity, and that's why they don't know what to think. Because every time life tried to break you, you didn't scream, you transformed. Number two, you're unreadable because you don't need to be understood. You don't need to be understood, and that right there is what confuses people the most. Most of the world is addicted to explaining itself, justifying its moves, proving its worth, and begging to be seen in the right light. But you move in silence and not the performative kind. You're not trying to be mysterious. You just genuinely don't care to be interpreted by people who aren't qualified to read you. That's the part that drives them mad. They expect reactions. They expect explanations. They expect you to shrink yourself into something they can label, control, or at least feel comfortable around. But you never give them that satisfaction. You walk into rooms without the need to prove anything. Not your pain, not your purpose, not your intelligence, not even your intentions. And when people can't put you in a category, they start making up stories to fill the gaps. They'll call you cold when you're just calm, arrogant when you're just self-aware, fake when you're just private. But none of that actually touches you because you're not performing for them. You've outgrown the need to be seen the right way by the wrong people. You know who you are, and that self-knowing has made you untouchable in a world full of people still begging to be liked. People don't know how to relate to someone who's not fishing for attention. They mistake your detachment for indifference, not realizing it's actually wisdom. You've learned the hard way that being understood by everyone comes with a price, and the price is usually authenticity. So you stop paying. You let people misunderstand you now. You let the rumors swirl. You let them guess, gossip, and spiral. Because the truth is, the more someone needs to be understood, the more they'll bend themselves out of shape just to be accepted. But you stopped bending a long time ago. You stopped performing. You started preserving your energy, and now your presence speaks louder than your explanations ever could. And that's what keeps them unsettled. You're not unreadable because you're hiding. You're unreadable because you've stopped giving people the cheat code to your soul. If they don't get it, they don't get it. And that's their problem, not yours. Number 3, your aura speaks in codes they weren't built to translate. There's something about you that people feel before they ever figure out. It's not in how you dress, talk, or even act. It's in your presence. The kind that speaks louder than words, but in a language most people were never taught to understand. They feel something when you walk into the room, but they can't put their finger on it. That tension, that unease, that sudden shift in the atmosphere. It's not intimidation, it's recognition, soul-level recognition. Something in them knows they're in the presence of something they can't control, decode, or categorize. Your energy doesn't just speak, it speaks in codes. And for people who only know how to read behavior on a surface level, you're unreadable. They try to measure your confidence but can't tell if it's experience or something deeper. They sense your peace, but it feels too solid to be fake. They feel your strength, but it doesn't look like what they're used to. It's not loud or showy, it's anchored. And that's what unsettles them. You don't walk like someone who's looking for approval. You walk like someone who came here with instructions. You move like someone who's guided, not guessed. That throws people off because most are just reacting to life, while you move like life's already been revealed to you. It challenges them in ways they don't have language for. They can't articulate what makes you different, so they resort to labels. Weird, mysterious, fake, too deep, too quiet, too intense, but those aren't facts. They're projections. What they're really saying is, you make me uncomfortable because I don't understand you and I'm not used to that. People want to believe they can read everyone, that they've seen every personality type, that no one can surprise them, but then you show up, and nothing about you fits the script. And when people can't decode you, they either feel drawn to you or disturbed by you, sometimes both, because you're not just walking through life, you're radiating something that their instincts pick up before their minds catch up. And the scariest part for them, it's not that they can't figure you out, it's that they're starting to realize you were never meant to be figured out in the first place. Number 4, you play by spiritual algorithms while they operate on human logic. You make choices that don't make sense to anyone but you. And that's exactly why people stay confused. They try to understand your moves using logic, theory, and analysis. They say that's not smart, or that's risky, or why would anyone do that? But what they don't get is that your life doesn't follow their formulas. You're not making decisions based on what's popular, safe, or statistically proven. You're moving based on something deeper. You're not driven by impulse or strategy. You're guided by alignment. To them, it looks reckless. To you, it's obedience. They see a leap. You feel a pull. They call it luck when things work out for you. But they don't realize you were instructed to move before the outcome ever showed. You don't wait for things to look right. You wait for them to feel right. You don't consult trends. You listen for timing. And when it's time, you don't hesitate, even if nothing around you makes sense yet. That's what they can't comprehend. They operate by human logic. If it adds up, they move. If it doesn't, they freeze. But you've lived enough to know that logic will always have limits, especially when your life is wired by something supernatural. You've followed logical advice before, and it backfired. You've made smart moves that led nowhere. But every time you followed that divine nudge, even when it made no sense on paper, doors opened, miracles happened, peace followed. They're trying to trace your patterns like you're a case study, but you have no pattern. You don't repeat cycles as you break them. You don't chase opportunities. You attract them through alignment. That's why they can't predict you. You're not forecasting your next step based on a 5-year plan. You're listening, waiting, moving when called. And here's the truth. That kind of movement scares people because it's out of their control. It means you can't be manipulated through fear, peer pressure, or urgency. It means you're not chasing what they're chasing because you're answering to something they can't even see. You're not successful because you're clever. You're accurate because you're connected. That's why nothing about your life makes sense until it's already too late to copy. Number 5, your failures don't register the way theirs do. When most people fail, they fall apart, they panic, they spiral, they start questioning their entire identity. But when you fail, there's this unsettling calm about you, like you already saw it coming. You don't react with desperation, you adjust, you reflect, you pivot, and then you keep moving forward with this strange sense of peace that doesn't match the moment. That's what makes people uneasy. It's not just that you didn't break down, it's that you didn't even flinch the way they expected you to. They measure failure as final. To them, a closed door means something's over. But to you, it's just another turn in the maze you already knew you'd have to navigate. You don't view setbacks as punishment. You see them as instructions. When things fall apart, you don't ask, why me? You ask, what now? That mindset alone puts you in a different league. It separates those who are reacting to life from those who are being redirected by something bigger. People who believe everything is random will never understand someone who walks like their life has already been written. Your detours don't look like losses because you carry revelation, you carry perspective. You understand that just because something failed doesn't mean you did, and that's hard for people to process, especially if they've tied their worth to outcomes. They want you to panic when things go wrong, not because they want to see you suffer, but because your peace exposes their fear. Your composure makes them question how fragile their confidence really is. They don't know that your clarity comes from pain, from patterns, from spiritual sensitivity. They don't know how many times you've already had to release things you loved, walk away from things that made sense, and trust a path that wasn't visible yet. So when failure comes, it doesn't shock you. It reminds you. You've been here before. You've seen what happens when you stay faithful even in the fog. You know the rhythm of divine delay, and that's what makes you dangerous. You don't just survive failure, you translate it. You mine wisdom from it, you evolve. And then you show up again, sharper, lighter, more focused. You don't lose like they lose, because you don't see endings, you see edits. Number 6, you attract loyalty and hatred without trying. You don't walk into people's lives, you crash into their comfort zones, and whether they admit it or not, your presence does something to them. It hits deep. It either stirs something alive or triggers something buried, and that's why people tend to react to you in extremes. There's rarely a middle ground. They're either loyal beyond reason or bitter without cause. They either admire you with intensity or avoid you like you're dangerous. That's not an accident. It's activation. You don't even have to speak much. Just being yourself is enough to shift the room, because your energy confronts people without trying. It reminds some of who they're called to be, and that feels inspiring. But for others, it reminds them of what they've abandoned, and that feels threatening. So when people cling to you, it's not always about love. Sometimes it's because being around you gives them a sense of purpose, direction, or clarity they can't generate on their own. You awaken something in them that's been sleeping, and suddenly they see more clearly. They feel more deeply. They dream more boldly. That's not charisma. That's spiritual influence. But the opposite is just as real. Some people can't stand you, and they'll swear it's your attitude, your tone, your vibe, or your beliefs. But in truth, it's not you they hate. It's what you reflect back to them. You force them to confront their own mediocrity, passivity, and fear. Your boldness highlights their hesitation. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your authenticity reveals their mask. And rather than grow, they choose to resent you, because rejecting you is easier than admitting they've been living beneath their potential. That's why people feel so strongly about you, even when they don't know you well. It's not about logic or experience, it's about impact. You don't just interact with people, you interfere with whatever they've been hiding or avoiding. You become a mirror, a catalyst, a trigger, or a spark, depending on where they are in their journey. And that's why your life is filled with extreme connections, unshakable loyalty from some, deep discomfort from others. But none of it is personal, it's spiritual. You didn't choose to be polarizing, you just carry something that refuses to be ignored. Number 7, you don't fit in, because you were meant to reroute the current. You've spent a lot of your life wondering why you never truly fit. You could be in a room full of people, laugh at the same jokes, follow the same trends, play along with the same rules, and still feel like an outsider. It wasn't because you lacked something, it's because you carried something that didn't match the environment. But for a long time, they made you feel like the misfit, like the exile, like the one who just couldn't get it right. What they never understood is that you weren't being pushed out, you were being set apart. People think being left out means you failed to belong. But in your case, it was never about failure. It was about direction. You weren't disconnected, you were being redirected, from noise to clarity, from crowds to calling, from blending in to breaking out. And that process hurt, because no one tells you how painful purpose can be when it first starts peeling you away from comfort. But you didn't come here to be accepted. You came to shift something. You came to disrupt a cycle. While others were polishing their personas to be more likable, more marketable, more on-brand, you were going through seasons of being broken down and rebuilt, not for popularity, but for power. And now the very ones who tried to overlook you are starting to circle back, because what you carry can't be ignored forever. You weren't made for the table they were so desperate to sit at, because you were being shaped to build your own. And this is why your story has always been unusual, why your path has been anything but straight. Because rerouting a current isn't clean work. It takes tension, it takes resistance, it takes standing firm when everything and everyone tells you to bend. You didn't take the longer route because you were lost. You took it because shortcuts don't prepare people for the kind of weight you were designed to carry. So when people say you've changed, they're not wrong. You've stopped trying to get in because you finally realized you were never meant to. You're not here to fit. You're here to shift, and that doesn't require a seat, it requires authority. Number 8, you radiate a peace that makes noise in their chaos. You don't force calmness, you are calm, and that's what makes people twitch. In a world where anxiety is normal and chaos is constant, someone who doesn't flinch, panic, or overreact becomes suspicious. Your peace doesn't look familiar to them, so they think it's fake, forced, or calculated. They don't realize you had to walk through fire to get this still. They don't know how many storms you had to survive before silence finally became your sanctuary. When people are used to drama, your lack of reaction looks like you don't care. But it's not apathy. It's maturity. You've felt the weight of real problems, real betrayal, real heartbreak. And when you've lived through that level of intensity, you stop giving your energy to small things. You're not cold. You're just no longer controlled by noise. And that makes people uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your stillness reminds them that they're not okay. They see you sitting with yourself without distraction, and it exposes their need to always be stimulated, entertained, or reassured. You're grounded in a way they can't understand, and instead of learning from it, they project suspicion onto it. Why are you so quiet? What are you thinking? You're too calm. What's really going on? They think you're hiding something, but the truth is they've never met someone who isn't running from themselves. You don't need noise to feel alive. You don't need chaos to feel relevant. You're not addicted to urgency or validation. You've found peace, and now you protect it like it's sacred. Because it is. Your calmness is a signal. It tells the room that you're not threatened, not competing, not panicking. And in a world built on overreaction, that's revolutionary. You don't just enter environments, you shift them. Without saying a word, your presence questions everything. Why are we rushing? Why are we arguing? Why are we panicking over things that won't matter in a year? And for some people that's too much, because when you radiate peace, you also expose who's still ruled by fear. They can't sit with your stillness without confronting their storm. So they assume you're hiding something, but what you're really doing is finally resting. Number 9. Your evolution is too fast for their narratives to keep up. People want you to stay who you were when they first met you, because that version was easier to understand, easier to manage, easier to feel superior to. They built a whole story about you based on who you used to be, maybe insecure, unsure, overlooked, or still figuring things out. And when you started evolving, faster than they expected, deeper than they were ready for. It scrambled the whole narrative they were clinging to. They say things like, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "You stopped being someone I could predict." And that scares them, because the minute you stop matching the role they gave you in their head, they lose control. Now they have to reassess you, reframe the past, and confront the fact that they might have underestimated someone who was always bigger than the space they were placed in. You're not just changing, you're outgrowing their entire understanding of you, and it's happening so fast they can't keep up. One minute you are trying to fit in, the next you're walking like someone who doesn't need permission anymore. That switch, that rise, makes them uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your growth highlights their stagnancy. They want you to stay in the chapter they met you in, but you're not living by their script. You've been rewriting your life in real time, shedding old skin, updating your mindset, breaking patterns, and walking into rooms you used to doubt you belonged in, and doing it with quiet confidence. That kind of shift doesn't make sense to people who haven't changed in years. They'll call it fake. They'll say it's overnight, but what they don't see is the years of silent work, private pain, and inner rewiring that led to this version of you. You didn't just level up, you burned the blueprint and started over. And now, every time you speak, move, or even post something, it contradicts the outdated version they were holding on to. And the truth is, you like that they don't know who you are anymore, because you were never meant to be understood by people committed to your past. You were meant to evolve so far, so fast, that their labels fall off. And all that's left is silence. Number 10, you make the supernatural look casual. You make things look too easy. And that bothers people more than they'll ever admit. They see the way doors open for you, how you always seem to be in the right place at the right time, how your instincts hit harder than logic ever could. And they try to explain it. They look for angles. They call it coincidence, luck, or privilege. Because admitting it might be favor means they'd have to admit there's a source behind it all. And that's a reality many aren't ready to confront. What they don't realize is that nothing about your life is casual to you. You know exactly what you've survived. You know how close you came to giving up. You've seen the traps, the betrayals, the losses, and yet somehow you're still standing with clarity and provision. That's not random, that's not luck. That's alignment, that's grace, that's divine orchestration. But people who have no relationship with the unseen can only describe what they can see. And your life doesn't make sense to their eyes. They don't see the warfare behind the wins. They don't see the battles you fought in silence. They don't see the tears, the fasts, the prayers, the discipline. They just see outcomes that look too smooth, too perfect, too easy. And because they're too proud to ask how it's happening, they assume it's all just handed to you. What unnerves them most is how unbothered you are when things should shake you, how you take divine insight seriously, even when it goes against logic, how you walk away from things others would kill for, because you know when something isn't meant for you, you're not relying on trends or advice. You're moving by revelation. And that's what makes your steps look otherworldly. You don't talk about it all the time because you don't need to. The fruit is loud enough. Your protection is loud. Your timing is loud. Your life, even in its quiet seasons, is a broadcast of divine evidence. And that unsettles people who are still trying to force what you seem to flow in effortlessly. It's not that your life is easy. It's that your connection is deep. And when you're walking with the one who sees everything before it unfolds, the supernatural starts to look like strategy. But it's not. It's favor. And that's the part they can't copy. Number 11, your boundaries are misread as arrogance. You don't move like someone who's trying to prove a point, and that alone makes people uncomfortable. You're not chasing validation. You're not stretching yourself thin to be liked. You're not bending over backward to keep doors open that clearly want to shut. And in a world trained to confuse overexertion with loyalty, that kind of self-respect looks like arrogance. You've stopped explaining your silence. You've stopped apologizing for your standards. You've stopped entertaining people who only value you when it's convenient. Not because you're bitter, but because you've finally realized that peace costs less than people-pleasing. That shift in you was necessary, but it came at a price: misunderstanding. Now, when you say no, people hear attitude. When you create space, they feel rejected. When you don't overextend, they take it personal. but none of it is personal. It's protection. People who were raised to equate love with sacrifice don't know how to respond to someone who simply won't overgive. They think something's wrong with you, that you're cold, that you've changed, that you think you're better. But what's really happening is that you're no longer auditioning for roles in other people's lives. You've stopped trying to earn what you already deserve, and that kind of confidence is disruptive. You've learned that real connection doesn't need constant convincing, that your presence is a gift, not a bargaining chip. So you move different now. You don't over-explain your value. You don't chase closure. You don't beg to stay where respect is absent. And because of that, people who still measure self-worth through how much they can endure will misread you every time. It's not that you're full of yourself. It's that you're finally full enough to stop being drained by everyone else. You've reached a place where your peace matters more than your image, where your boundaries are no longer up for negotiation. And that clarity, that wholeness, that refusal to shrink just to keep others comfortable, that's what's getting under their skin. You didn't become arrogant, you became aware. And that awareness made you dangerous, not because you're rude, but because you no longer need approval to breathe. Number 12, your discernment feels like an invasion to the inauthentic. You don't look through people, you look into them, and that alone makes most of them uncomfortable. You catch things others miss, the shift in their tone, the hesitation behind their words, the energy that doesn't match their smile. You don't need full confessions to know something's off. Your spirit picks it up before your brain even has language for it. That level of discernment isn't something you learned, it's something you carry. And for people who are used to performing, it feels like exposure. They can't fake wholeness around you. They can't hide behind charm, confidence, or status. Because you're not impressed by what's presented, you're tuned into what's real. You sense insecurity dressed up as ego. You hear pain tucked behind sarcasm. You feel fear cloaked in control. And no matter how subtle they think they are, you see it all. Not because you're looking for flaws, but because your soul doesn't buy what their image is selling. And the truth is, not everyone wants to be seen at that depth. Some people live in performance mode. They've built entire identities around being likable, envied, or admired. So when someone like you shows up, someone who doesn't flinch at the mask, who sees the wound behind the role, it feels like a threat. You didn't ask for the truth, but your presence demands it. That's why people shift around you. They either open up or shut down. There's rarely an in-between. Some will feel safe, like they can finally take the mask off. Others will feel exposed, like standing in emotional daylight with nowhere to hide. And the ones who feel threatened will say things like, "You're too intense," or "I don't know what it is, but something about you throws me off." What they're really saying is, "I can't fake it around you, and I'm not ready to be real." You're not suspicious. You're sensitive. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. And the people who have nothing to hide, they love that about you. But the ones who've built their lives on illusion, they'll always see you as a problem, because your discernment doesn't just see through them. It confronts the version of themselves they've been avoiding all along. Number 13, you're punished for not playing roles they assigned you in their heads. People don't just meet you, they assign you. The moment you enter their life, many start building a version of you that fits their expectations, their comfort, their ego. Maybe they saw you as the quiet one, the helper, the underdog, the one who would always be available, agreeable, and predictable. They created that version without your consent. And when you started growing beyond it, things got tense. Suddenly, your confidence looked like arrogance. Your boundaries looked like betrayal. Your silence looked like attitude. But really, all you did was step out of the limited role they were trying to keep you in. You stopped playing the part they wrote for you in their head, and now they don't know how to interact with the real you, the evolved you, the one who doesn't shrink to make them feel comfortable, the one who doesn't say yes out of guilt, the one who's done being passive just to keep peace. And instead of admitting that they were never relating to the real you, they make you feel like you're the one who changed for the worse. But you didn't change. You just stopped performing. You stopped being who they needed you to be so they could stay in control. You stopped dumbing down your voice, hiding your strength, or minimizing your presence just to keep a dynamic that only served them. They try to guilt trip you now, say things like, "You've changed, you're not the same anymore," or "You think you're better than us." But what they really mean is, "You're not easy to manage anymore." And that's true. You've outgrown being manageable. Some will distance themselves quietly, while others will push harder to box you back in, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. They'll try to drag you back to the version that made them feel powerful, important, or needed. But the moment you stopped living to meet their projection, you started living in truth. And some people can't handle truth unless it benefits their illusion. So yes, you get punished for breaking the mold, not because you did anything wrong, but because you revealed how much they depended on your smallness. And the more you expand, the more their grip slips. They're not losing you, they're losing control. And that's a loss their ego was never prepared for. Number 14, you make people question themselves just by existing. You don't have to speak a word to make an impact. Your existence alone causes a reaction. People can't just be neutral around you. Something about you makes them feel more aware of themselves, and not always in a way that's comfortable. You walk into a space and suddenly people start second-guessing things they were sure about 5 minutes ago. Their confidence wobbles. Their decisions feel off. Their identity feels shaky. And you didn't do anything to them. You just showed up in your full, authentic self. That's the part that throws them. You're not out here trying to correct people or call anyone out. You're just living in truth. And that truth acts like a mirror. The way you speak with clarity, the way you hold your boundaries, the way you refuse to fake anything, it all reflects something back to them. For some, it's inspiring. For others, it's triggering because it highlights where they've compromised, settled, or disconnected from themselves. Your resilience makes them feel exposed. They see how you've been through storms and still carry peace, and it forces them to confront how quickly they fall apart under pressure. You've healed things they haven't even admitted are broken. You've faced things they keep running from. And when someone hasn't done that kind of inner work, being around you can feel like standing in a spotlight. Too much truth, too much presence, too much realness. People want to stay on autopilot. They want to avoid thinking deeply about who they are and what they've become. But your energy doesn't let that happen. Your life demands awareness. It asks questions they haven't asked themselves in years. Questions like, am I really living? Am I really aligned? Am I really being honest with myself? You don't even know the full weight of what you carry because you've never had to force it. You're just being. But that being is powerful. It shakes things up. It unsettles illusions. And that's why people either draw near to you like a light or back away like they've been burned. The truth is, you were never trying to be a mirror. You just refused to be a mask. And in a world full of people pretending, that alone is revolutionary. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. And that's not a flaw, it's confirmation. The confusion you cause, the reactions you trigger, the extremes you pull from people, it all proves that you're not ordinary. You're not here to blend in, explain yourself endlessly, or play the role others assign to feel comfortable. You're a walking disruption to everything fake, fragile, and surface level. And that's exactly why they don't know what to think about you. You've been mislabeled, misjudged, and misread, but never truly touched. Because what they can't grasp, they can't control. What they can't define, they can't limit. You move in codes. You're wired for alignment, not applause. You operate on a wavelength that breaks human logic, and even when they try to box you in with projections, your growth continues to outpace their understanding. You weren't built for shallow spaces. You weren't sent to play along. Your very existence is a mirror, a trigger, a sign, a message. You show people what's real just by being yourself. And that's why you shake atmospheres without trying. It's not arrogance. It's assignment. Let them wonder. Let them project. Let them wrestle with what you awaken. That's not your burden to carry. It's part of what you were sent to do. You are not confusing. You are revealing. And in a world drowning in illusion, that makes you rare and necessary. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if it made things click, clarified your journey, or helped you see yourself in a new light, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, drop a comment and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Your words might be the mirror they've been waiting for, And if you're tired of surface-level content and ready for more truth like this, raw, honest, and spiritually real, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a drop. This isn't just content, it's confirmation. Let's grow deeper together.